This video is brought to you by Skillshare. More on them later in the video. Even though I draw tons of different monsters and creatures on this channel, I've never done anything with Godzilla or the other awesome kaijus in the Godzilla franchise. So in today's episode, we're finally gonna rectify that. I had considered taking popular superheroes and turning them into Godzilla-like kaiju monsters, but I've been doing a lot of turning superheroes into dragons lately, so I thought, let's do the old switcheroo. I want to actually work with the characters from Godzilla, so I'm going to take characters like Godzilla and Rodan, Ghidorah and Mothra, and redraw them and design them as if they were superheroes and supervillains. And of course, wrote out some origins for them and made a little story about how they all would meet and interact. But if you do like the idea of me doing that reverse superheroes as kaijus, make sure to hit the like button as a way of casting your vote on that one. But for now, let's get into kaijus as superheroes. Our first hero today actually started out as a villain. Ishiro Tanaka had been born with impossible strength, durability, and an extended lifespan, among other inhuman abilities. But in spite of this, he lived a rather simple life as a small-time fisherman from Odo Island in Japan. One who would only ever fish the minimal amount that he needed to sell to keep himself fed and alive. He'd always been very wary of how humanity mistreated their environment and feared that humans would one day ruin the earth that he so loved. This became a bigger concern of Ishiro's when the waters near his home stopped providing fish. Large corporations from Tokyo had sent fishing boats near Odo Island, and in their greed had majorly overfished the area, leaving nothing for the locals. This furthered Ishiro's frustration with humanity, and he finally decided to use his long dormant abilities. He donned a mask and costume to conceal his identity, then he headed for Tokyo. He destroyed the buildings of all the fishing companies who'd sent their fishers to Odo, using his incredible strength and the atomic blasts that he could fire from his hands. When the army attacked him, this only furthered his rage, and he began destroying everything that he saw. He was insanely powerful and annihilated everything that came his way. And then, after he felt he'd sent his message, he fled, removed his costume, and resumed a normal, quiet life. That is, until some other super beings started stirring up trouble around the world. Now, for all the drawings in this video, I was kind of challenging myself in the coloring stage because the posters that you'll see me referencing from Godzilla King of Monsters are some of my favorite movie posters I've ever seen, where it's all one individual color per poster and per character. And I really wanted to try that out with these, so for each character, I'm trying to almost exclusively use one base color. Obviously, there's a few exceptions. The lighting on the character, I'm usually picking a complementary color. In this case, I'm adding some yellow lighting on a mostly blue character, and then there's some parts around his mouth where I don't make him blue or a grayish blue. But I think it does turn out pretty nicely. The characters obviously won't stand out quite as much from their background because I try to use the same sort of color in behind them. They obviously would stand out a lot better if I used a complementary color behind them, but I thought it would be a fun experiment and a good way to challenge myself with my colors. And overall, I am super happy with how this first one turned out. Took some inspiration from Juggernaut and from Armored Batman, and I think he looks pretty cool. So I hope you all like him too. Here's our Godzilla superhero. Decades ago, Ken Nakajima had been a criminal from a mining village called Kitamatsu in Japan. Like Ishiro, he had been born with an incredible inhuman lifespan and extremely durable skin. But in addition to that, he'd also been born with large dragon-like wings. As his criminal career progressed, he became more and more daring with his robberies and assaults, pulling off heists in China and Okinawa and the Philippines, being less and less discreet each time, testing just how durable he was. It seemed no human weapons could penetrate his incredibly tough skin. But on one particularly daring robbery, the Japanese army sent helicopters after him, and he wasn't able to shake them. In an arrogant attempt to escape, he flew straight into the active Sakurajima volcano, assuming his durability would protect him. The army waited, but he didn't emerge from the volcano. He was presumed dead and left in the bubbling magma. Decades later, 3 men, who we'll talk about later, went looking for the long-forgotten villain. Using their own near invulnerability, these men pulled Ken from the volcano, and as he escaped the magma, he awoke. He'd been in a state of hibernation for all these years. He was alive, but not the same. His skin and wings were coated in hardened, stony, molten rock, and his body remained in a superheated state. If anything, his time in the volcano had only made him more powerful, which was exactly what his 3 saviors, commonly referred to as the Ghidorah brothers, were hoping for. Now with Rodan, there were kind of 3 different main inspirations for how I was drawing him. One was Farah from Overwatch, one was the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming, and one was kind of the Thing from the Fantastic Four. I knew I wanted to go with the more modern version of Rodan, where he's like really rocky and got kind of magma on him, but I also tried to work into the lore that there was an alternate version of him that wasn't as rocky and bumpy. You can probably tell from how this story is going if you've seen Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'm taking a lot of inspiration for this story from that, how the teams all work in that movie and like the monsters teaming up and stuff. That gave me a really good base for how to lay out this story. And in terms of the design, I tried to make this character a little bit leaner and skinnier, but also make his wings pretty chunky and thick, like they look like they're actually coated in a bit of rock. Obviously, I've had a bunch more practice lately drawing wings because I've been doing so many dragons videos, and I think this is some nice variety from how I've been drawing wings in other videos lately. The only thing I don't love about this one is how I did his helmet. It's a little bit just not super interesting. But besides that, I really like the pose and how the coloring all came out. I think this one's super cool looking, might be one of my favorites of the video. So I hope y'all like our Rodan supervillain. Now, something that I've really loved about coming up with the stories and designs for these videos is the fact that they've really kept my mind off of the fact that I'm self-quarantining, like a lot of you out there. And if you need or want some mini escapes throughout your day and to help fend off the boredom during this extra downtime, a great way to do that is to take some online classes, like the ones available on Skillshare, who is the sponsor of today's video. See, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring drawing classes and writing classes and animating classes and more for creative and curious people. And giving yourself a creative activity or task or challenge can really set your mind at ease and help you break up the routine of your day. I'm currently taking a class by Victo Nye called Color Masterclass: Simple Steps to Create Vivid Art. Coloring is one of my absolute favorite parts of the artistic process, and while I do really love how my coloring looks, there's always room for improvement. And this class is great for learning or brushing up on the core principles of color. I highly recommend that class, and it's going to be super easy for any of you to take. Since Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can start exploring your creativity. I really believe that learning is a great way to beat boredom, so check it out if you're interested. But for now, back to our super kaijus. The Ghidorah brothers had spent years as some of the most powerful crime lords in Japan. They too had an increased lifespan and strength and durability, among other skills, but they saw these abilities in a different light than Ishiro and Ken had. Over their lives, the Ghidorah brothers had eventually started to believe that they and anyone with similar abilities were gods and were meant to rule over humanity with an iron fist. And if anyone was to be the leader of these godlike beings, it was going to be the Ghidorah brothers. They decided to build up their ranks, starting with the long-forgotten Ken Nakajima. Knowing he'd have survived his time in the volcano, they dug him out and used this favor to win his allegiance. They began a devastating tour of destroying major cities around the world, calling for others with similar abilities to join them. Their message eventually reached the long-quiet Ishiro Tanaka, who had no intentions of aiding in the destruction of the world. When he'd smashed up Tokyo, it had been to send a message about protecting the Earth not enslaving its residents. Ishiro updated his old costume and went off to battle with the Ghidorah brothers, who had made their way to America. Ishiro challenged the brothers and Ken and fought well, but was seriously outnumbered. At one point he thought he'd killed one of the brothers in the fight, but little did he know that as long as one brother was still alive, the other two could be quickly revived. The Ghidorah brothers had too many strengths for Ishiro to defeat alone. One could fly, one could shoot incredible tendrils of lightning, and one was a master dueler with the spiked maces that he fought with. Ishiro was on the brink of losing when another hero joined the fight. Now this one I knew was going to be a little bit more complicated because I felt like I had to do 3 characters. I thought about the options of doing 3 human heads on one character, and that was a little bit iffy, and then I thought about the idea of one character that could kind of duplicate themselves, but it all felt a little bit lazier, and I was like, you know what, this will work better if I have 3 different characters. And then as I was deciding that, I kind of came up with the idea that, okay, well, what if they all have slightly varying powers or combat abilities? So I took the fact that Ghidorah has 2 spiked tails and made those into the spiked maces for one character. I had one be the one that kind of shoots tendrils of lightning, one that can fly, and I thought this positioning would work kind of well to still sell the idea that this is Ghidorah, one kind of flying up in behind the other 2 who are both ready to go to town fighting. I also realized as I was drawing these ones that they ended up looking a lot like Naruto, which was not my intention. My thought behind the design was basically just break up the yellow parts of the suit with some black-gray kind of bits that sort of represent the pattern on Ghidorah's stomach and neck. But hey, I don't really have a problem with it. Naruto's a cool character, and overall I'm pretty happy with how this one came out. Simpler design than some of the others because I had to draw the character 3 times, but I still think this one turned out super cool. So here is our super villain overlord, the Ghidorah brothers. While there had been many others willing to join the Ghidorah brothers' rampage, Emi Nakamura had respected Ishiro's fight to stop the destruction. Emi had lived a long life as the protector of the natives on Infant Island. Many had wished to take the land from the local residents, but Emi had always fended them off. Like the others of this story, she was a superhuman, and her additional abilities included sharp stinger blades that sprung from her forearms, a set of moth-like wings with which she could fly at incredible speeds, and energy beams that she could fire from her eyes. Eventually, she'd made her way to mainland Japan to continue her heroic work, and she'd learned how to create a supersuit for herself that helped her enhance and channel her abilities. She'd never desired to be a god, but simply a helper to humanity, so it was a no-brainer that as she joined the brawl between Ishiro and the Ghidorah brothers, she'd be fighting alongside Ishiro. While Ishiro was trying to handle the brothers, Emi took care of Ken. The 2 traded explosive blows above the city skyline. Ken was large and powerful, but in the end was no match for Emi's litany of abilities, eventually being bested by her stingers. He fled to tend to his wounds, and Emi helped Ishiro with the Ghidorahs. The battle was long and destructive, but eventually it became clear that the Ghidorah brothers weren't going to be able to keep up. First, the lightning slinger was killed, then the mace-wielding brother. The final brother knew that if he died, that would be the end of their legacy. They wouldn't be able to revive. He scooped up his brothers' bodies and fled the scene to recover and replan their next attack. Ishiro and Emi had done it, for now. And despite Ishiro's past crimes against Japan, he and Emi were now seen as worldwide heroes for humanity. Decided I'd leave it a little bit open there so that we could do another one of these in the future. Maybe something with King Kong. I had thought about doing him for this video, but story-wise, he didn't fit in so much. I didn't know where I wanted to take him, and obviously I usually only have time to do 4 drawings for these videos. Now this was the one character where I had more room to mess around with the colors, because even though that same poster style for Mothra has Mothra in all this kind of turquoisey, bluey green kind of color, Mothra's actual colors do vary more than that because her wings go like yellow and blue and orange. So I tried to keep the core of the body pretty simple colors because a lot of Mothra's coloring is mostly just on her wings and a little bit in her eyes, even though I changed the color of the eyes a little bit. It was a little bit tricky figuring out how I wanted to color each individual part, especially because I kind of wanted our eyes drawn towards the character's head and torso, but the wings had the most color contrast. But eventually I think I found a good balance, making the eyes yellow worked well and having a streak of orange on the mask worked. This was another one where I was taking some inspiration from Pharah from Overwatch. I don't really know why I ended up making the two hero characters a little bit more mechanized looking and the villains not so much mechanized looking. There wasn't really a reason behind that, but I guess it does kind of make them separated a little bit more into teams, though there's nothing really in the story to suggest why that would be the case. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I still really like how this one turned out, and I hope you all do as well. Here is our Mothra superhero. I didn't actually realize how fun these prompts were going to be for superheroes. This was a blast of an episode to make. And speaking of drawing superheroes, lots of people have been drawing their awesome superhero teams to combat mine in the art battle PopCross thing talked about in the previous video. It's so cool seeing all the new superhero teams coming up on Instagram and in the Discord. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check out the previous video, I'll link it in the cards. And upon people's requests, we opened a spot in the Discord for people to submit if they don't have Instagram. So I'll be looking out in the Art Battle PopCross channel in the Discord and on the hashtag Art Battle PopCross. But besides that, if you're new to the channel, make sure to check out some of the other videos. Got lots of stuff like this, turning things into superheroes, turning things into monsters, putting stuff in Star Wars or D&D. Lots and lots of nonsense like this. So if you like this, you'll probably like that stuff. So, you know, go check it out. But that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.